Quirky rules of television, separate beds, short kisses. Oh, yeah, the Hays Code had the rule about 3-second kisses, so kisses couldn't be longer than 3 seconds. Lucy couldn't say the word pregnant. I Love Lucy, when she was pregnant, she had to say, I'm having a baby. She couldn't say pregnant. Ethel on I Love Lucy had to be 20 pounds heavier than Lucy, and that was by contract because they wanted Lucy to be the sweet petite one, so they made sure that Ethel was the heavy one. And interestingly enough, later, Lucy and Ethel, the woman who played Ethel, did another TV show, and Ethel lost the weight. So it was interesting to see. Cops had to be portrayed in good light. Dragnet, the FBI, the cops couldn't be the villains in the original age of television. I think there was what was that TV show that was on about 10 years ago? The Shield. The Shield was the one that came out about 10 years ago, and it really flipped this idea on its head. It was one of the ones that you watch the cops, and the cops were getting the right things done, but by the wrong means. And that was one of the groundbreaking shows because cops had never really been portrayed in a bad light prior to that. I mean, I'm sure they had, but that was the first TV show to really stick it to them, stick to a new idea. You can't drink alcohol straight from a bottle. So if you're going to drink alcohol on television, you have to decant it. You have to pour it into something before you drink it. If you don't pour it into something before you drink it, then you'll see the winos on television shows are typically drinking out of a paper bag, and that's the idea being you can't tell what they're drinking out of. This is also why people on television shows drink out of flasks, because they're not allowed to drink straight from the bottle. If you'll notice beer commercials, they're always waving their bottles around, but they're never tipping them back because they can't. They're not allowed to tip them back. Now, occasionally you will see a television show where they're drinking beer from a bottle. The rule is supposed to be that they can do that as long as they don't say, I'm drinking beer, look at me drinking beer. They have to have some distinction between, they're not allowed to identify what's in the bottle as alcoholic. I have seen them break that recently, and I'm not exactly sure how and why they're doing it, but I have seen a few shows recently that broke that rule, and I don't know exactly how or why they're breaking, if they changed the rules or not. They're not allowed to advertise cigarettes on television. That was a rule in the 1970s. Back when they first started linking cigarette smoking with cancer and being bad for your health, they banned cigarette advertising on television shows. You can smoke a cigarette, but you can't advertise cigarettes on television. I mentioned Barbara Eden couldn't show her navel. Couldn't show a woman in a bra before the 1990s. Yeah, that was another quirky rule. There are 68 words you can't say on television. There's a list. You can Google it. Most of them are sexual in nature. The one I was surprised by was you can't use Jesus Christ as an expletive. You can't say, Jesus Christ. You can say Jesus Christ as long as it's in reverent tones. If you use it as an expletive, you're not allowed to do that. Now, what I don't know is how South Park gets away with it, because that's like a mainstay on South Park, is to have Stan say, Jesus Christ. And I don't know how they pull that one off, but they do. You're not supposed to key the president's name. The key is the name key that goes in the bottom of the screen down here. The theory is, if you're too uninformed to recognize the President of the United States, then no matter what he has to say, it's not going to be relevant to you. So there's no point in keying his name. So I haven't actually seen anyone violate that rule, but I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I don't think anybody gets penalized if they put Barack Obama on the bottom of the screen. But as a general rule, you're not supposed to key the president's name on television. They try and stay away from giving directions that say left and right. And the reason is I just said left. And if you're watching me on television, you saw the right side of my body go up. So they try not to give directions in left and right. It sort of forces people up against the fourth wall of television. The fourth wall being you're not supposed to you're supposed to forget that you're watching a television show. And if you give directions as left and right and people see this is left, it kind of throws their brain off and they don't they kind of takes them out of reality for the moment. So generally, when they give directions on television show, they'll go that way, go that way, or they'll say north or south, but they don't they try not to say left, right, because it confuses the viewing audience. No actors with the same name. That's a SAG rule. SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. And in theory, there should not be any actors by the same name. The example I have there is Michael J. Fox. I believe Michael Fox's real name is Sean Fox. But when he got to Hollywood and he got his agent, it turned out there was already a guy named Sean Fox in the Screen Actors Guild. So Sean had to change his name. He changed his name to Michael. That was his middle name. His real name was Sean Michael Fox. And then his agent said, you need something that's going to stick with people, something that's going to just, when they say your name, it kind of hooks in there. So he added the letter J. Michael J. Fox. And it sticks with you. That name, when you hear that name, it sticks with you. But this is why you see a lot of actors, this rule about no actors with the same name, this is why a lot of actors have three names. That's because they're not supposed to have the same names, and frankly, they're kind of running out of names. So, and some people just make up names. By the way, you will see actors go by other names, and usually what's going on there is if they're working the Screen Actors Guild with SAG, they have a registered name with the Screen Actors Guild. If they want to work on a project that is not affiliated with the Screen Actors Guild, they're not supposed to do that. But they got a loophole in that if they don't use their stage name, they can do it. So if they're trying to work on something that's non-union and they don't want to deal with the Screen Actors Guild, they'll use a different name. SAG rules. Oh, SAG rules. These are fun. Again, SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. It's anybody who's going to be a talent on television is supposed to be a member of SAG. Now, SAG is a union, so if you're doing a show that's not union, you don't have to deal with SAG. So many of these reality shows that are on today are not union, so they get away with not having to deal with SAG. But there's many different tiers as to what kind of actor you can be. There's a background extra, which is literally just a guy who walks back and forth in the background. And this is paid a day wage. It's a good way to get your SAG card, which many actors want their SAG card because SAG pays pretty well. There's a recurring extra, which is an extra in a television show that you see on a regular basis, walk in, walk out regularly. There's speaking extras. These would be essentially somebody who comes in and has one line or something to say. Then there's featured extras and royalties. The thing about speaking extras, the contracts can be tweaked, so this is not a hard and fast rule. But the thing about a speaking extra is the general rule is if you have more than 6 words in a script, in a film day, it has to be one continuous day. It has to be done in one day. If you get to say more than 6 words, you are eligible for royalties on the program. Whenever the program airs in syndication, you get a royalty check. Consequently, you will see a lot of speaking extras who get 6 words or less because producers just don't want to deal with the royalty rights. There'll be a lot of times that you see an actor and you can count the number of words he says on screen and it won't hit 6 because they want to get him out of there before they have that 6th word. This brings up what I like to call the Gunther game. Gunther, if you remember, was a character on Friends, the TV show Friends from a decade ago. And he was Jennifer Aniston's boss at the coffee shop. Now, Gunther, he was generally a recurring extra. He would be in the background regular basis. He would walk through the background and he would point to things that Jennifer was supposed to be doing. Occasionally, he got lines. There was one episode where Jennifer Aniston's talking about being in love with a friend of hers, and they cut to Gunther, and his line is, "Please let it be me. Please let it be me." 5 words. They cut him off before he got enough lines in to get the royalty contract. Another episode, Chandler comes up and he says, "I don't need any of you people. I got my pal Gunther." And Gunther looks at him and says, "What's my last name? What's my last name?" They cut him off before the 6th word. They don't want to pay him royalties. So Gunther, you can count on one hand the number of episodes Gunther is in where he says more than 6 words. And I always cheer for him when I see that, because I know those 5 episodes or less, I don't even know how many times he does it, he's eligible for royalties on those episodes. Every time that episode airs where Gunther says more than 6 words, by contract, he should be getting a royalty check from the producers of Friends. So every time I see an episode where Gunther gets to talk, yay, cheer, Gunther gets his paycheck. Now, I don't know. They may have negotiated something different. This is all contract negotiation stuff. They may have negotiated something else out with him so they don't have to pay him for that. But he is eligible for royalties every time an episode airs where he says more than 6 words. Syndication. There's generally 2 rules for syndication, 2 things they try for syndication. One is you want to get more than 3 seasons in the bag, or you want more than 100 episodes. That's kind of the hard and fast rule. If you get more than 3 seasons, then it's believed that your show has enough traction that it can support syndication. And if you have more than 100 episodes, you've got plenty of material that it can be syndicated. So that's usually the way it goes. They want either 3 seasons or 100 episodes. I have a picture there of Bill Nye. Bill Nye was a television show. Bill Nye the Science Guy was a television show produced by Buena Vista, who is Disney. And Disney is notoriously cheap. So when Bill Nye got his contract to do Bill Nye the Science Guy, they wanted to ensure that he stayed on the air long enough to get into syndication. And they didn't know how long Disney was going to support him, but they cranked through episodes. I worked with Bill Nye during that time, and that guy was drop dead exhausted. He just looked tired. And they would literally have like 3 sets going simultaneously, and he would just walk from one and do his cameo walk on, step off, go to the next one, do his cameo walk on, step. And they wanted to hit that 100 episode mark so they could get the show into syndication. I did see that they did hit 100 episodes. I was in the edit facility. They did hit 100 episodes, but I have a feeling that the last 20 or 30 of them were kind of recaps and recuts of other stuff he had done. But what they were trying to accomplish was they wanted to ensure that they had enough material that show would last in syndication, and they could all get royalty checks from however long that show continued to run. I think it ran about 5 years. And I've talked to people who worked on Bill Nye, and these checks would just kind of come trickling in every few months. They're like, "Hey, cool, bonus check." So anyway, that's why I put Bill up. They ran him through the marathon, but he knew there was a time limit, and he had to get those 100 episodes done before they pulled the plug on him.